Hi everyone, welcome to Gateway Mechanical Lectures. Here we have the solution for the quiz day 17 and today's topic is industrial engineering. Here we have our first question. Consider the following. Okay, there was a condition given for a company where they order the maintain inventory level. Given that the demand is 10,000 units, if nothing in matter, it is annual demand. Unit cost is rupees 100. Okay, the product which they are making, it is having a unit cost of rupees 100. Ordering cost, it is rupees 160 per order. So whenever they make an order, it will be 160 rupees per order. Inventory carrying cost, it is rupees 20. Generally it is rupees 20. This per unit per year should be given here in the back order. Back order cost is rupees 10. Then what will selling cost per unit for no profit and no loss condition? So here back order condition was given. Nothing but a back order inventory policy condition was given. Generally back order means out of stock. Suppose we are placing some components required for our order. We are making some manufacturing. For us, we require some components for making our manufacturing. So we need to order it in time, and also we should not order in excess. If we order in excess, we need to store them. So we need to pay for the storage also. So in that way, so what we'll do is we'll make an inventory model. And also while we are making this, due to peak conditions, due to late delivery of our required components, we may be making a late delivery of our components to the clients, our manufacturing products. So then there will be a back order involved. So then will be a cost involved for the back order. I mean, that is also a loss to a company. So this is a case of back order inventory level. And generally for this type of questions, you need to refer some textbook and just go through the formula required for this. There will be 5 models here in the inventory. You go through all the models and once write down all the formulas, then it will be very easy. We'll just to save time, we'll be just going and solving the question. Here the economic order quantity that is required to be ordered for an optimum level, to maintain the optimum level of inventory. Optimum means it is like whatever we are getting, means we are not taking into account all the possibilities. Okay, we are not taking into account all the possibilities like late delivery or else some other technical reasons we are not taking into account. But the Q is a level where we will not have any loss, but we'll be sure in being a profit, and inventory maintenance will be very less here. So this is called as economic order quantity. In the name itself it is economic. So if you order that number of quantity, it will be more economic too for us. Depending upon, it will be depend on various factors. One will be on the order cost, the unit cost, what is the cost of the unit, and also it depends upon the carrying cost, nothing but the holding cost, and also the ordering cost. So it depends on all. So generally if the EOQ, that is nothing but Q, generally it will denote it sometimes like Q star also, but here we will be denoting it by Q, is given formula as 2 into D, annual demand, into ordering cost upon holding cost or carrying cost. Here since it is a back order inventory policy, we'll also have CB plus CH, holding cost upon CB. This is the formula used to calculate the EOQ here in this case. So 2 into the demand was given in the question as 1000, into the ordering cost was given 160 rupees, upon the holding cost was given as 20, and the back order cost was 10, and again holding cost was 20, upon the back order was again 10. So once we calculate that, we are getting 219 units. Okay, this is the economic order quantity inventory we need to maintain. So what should be the maximum inventory level that we can maintain, we should maintain? Maximum inventory level is generally maximum inventory level. Okay, it is denoted by QM, and that is given as Q into CH upon CB plus CH. Okay, and Q just now we calculated 219 into the value of CH that was given in the question 10, and CB was given, sorry, this is CB upon CB plus CH, and CB is 10 and CB again 10, and CH is given as 20, and this comes out to be 73 units. Okay, the maximum inventory level is 73 units. Now we'll calculate what will be the total cost if we are maintaining this maximum inventory level. So the total cost Generally the total cost involves four types of cost here. One is the material cost, so we'll be purchasing our raw material, right? That is the material cost, plus carrying cost. So what will be the carrying cost? And other will be the ordering cost. Even for placing order there is some cost involved, that is the ordering cost, plus shortage cost. If there is a shortage, then it is a loss to a company, so that will be accompanied like a shortage cost, and that comes out to be material cost is generally given by unit cost, nothing but it is generated by C here, into the annual demand, plus carrying cost, it is generally half into QM, nothing but maximum inventory square, upon Q into CH, that is the holding cost or the carrying cost. And ordering cost, generally ordering cost is demand upon the inventory into ordering cost. Demand is suppose 1000 per year, our inventory is 219, then how many times will be placing order? 1000 upon 219 into the ordering cost for each placing of order, plus finally the shortage cost. Shortage cost is, it is generally given by Q minus QM whole square upon 2 into Q into shortage cost is nothing but back order into CB, right? So once we'll substitute all the values, the C was given in the question as 100 into the demand was 1000 plus half into the QM we calculated 73 square upon the Q 219 into the holding cost was given 20 and D was 1000 upon 219 into the ordering cost, again it was given in the question as 160 plus Q, just now we calculated EOQ 219 minus the maximum inventory 73 whole square upon again 2 into 219 into the ordering back order cost was given 10. Okay, once we substitute this, finally we are getting our total cost. The total cost comes out to be 101,460.6. okay, this is our total cost. And for no profit no loss case, for no profit and no loss, generally our total cost whatever we are spending should be equal to the total sales whatever we are selling. So in a year we will be selling demand nothing but D number, nothing but 1000 units into, for each unit we need to here determine the selling cost. So let be the selling cost SP, for each unit into SP is equal to the total cost just now we have calculated 101,460.6. From that we will be getting, and D is given as 1000, and now we will be getting our selling price. Selling price is equal to, we will be getting it as 101.46 rupees. This is our selling price and this is our answer. And here comes our second question. Suppose a firm is manufacturing automobiles. So there is a company which manufactures automobiles and finds a relationship between sales and the index demand of cars. So it is seeing sales and also index demand, nothing but it may be per month, it may be per year. Generally it is given for a year. So index demand of cars. So how many cars it is having demand. Okay, and how many sales it is happening is given in a particular year. So here I given the sales for the last 5 years. So for 2012 it was given. So here it is like we are in 2017 year as per this question. So for the last 5 years it is given. 2012 it was given. The sales was 110 and the demand was 100. And 2013 the sales were 130 while the demand was 110. In 2014 the sales was 150 while the demand was 140. And 2015 the sales was 160 while the demand is 150. But in 2016 the sales was only 180. So sales was only 180, the demand was 200. So it was a relation given, and if you can observe 110, 100, 130, 110, it is not having much variation, right? So the value whatever given y and x is not having very much variation. So mostly they will be a straight line relationship since they are almost close. Okay, mostly they will be having a straight line relationship with a little deviation. That deviation is nothing but an intercept here. So we will assume that equation as y is equal to ax plus b. Okay, we'll take this equation and finally we need to get the value of a and b. Then only we will get the relationship between demand index and the sales. So we'll be getting a relation between y and x. So we'll assume it as y is equal to ax plus b. We can also make x is equal to ay plus b. Both will be the same here. Just we need to get the relation among them. Okay, for that first of all we'll make a table here, tabular column. So this is our table where see the contents in the table. The first column will be the year, whatever given in the question. And the second column will be the demand. So first we'll be writing for this type of problems, we'll be writing the given data in the columns, demand, and then the next is sales, and sales is denoted by y in the question. And next we'll calculate x square, and then we'll calculate xy. Why we are doing that is here xy. First of all we'll make the table, then we will discuss why we are making this. In the event year 2012, the demand was given 100 and the sales was 110. Okay, again in 2013, 2014, 2015 and 2016. I'm just writing out all the data. You can check from the question. In 2015 it is 150, 2016 it is 200, and here it is 130, 150, 160 and then 180. And here we'll make how many number of years we are making this. So it is making 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 4 constraints here. So we are having 4 constraints. So it is n is equal to 4. To get a relation among them, to get a proper relation between all these years, we need to take n is equal to, sorry, it is 5. N is equal to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And next demand. For here we will calculate the total summation here of x, and that comes out to be 700. And we will make the total summation of y, and that comes out to be 730. Now we will calculate the value of x square, 100 square, 110 square, 140 square, again to 150 square, 22500, 200 square, 400. And now we need to multiply x and y. 100 into 110, 1100, 11000, 110 into 130, 14300, 140 into 150, 21,000, 150 into 160, 24000, and 200 into 180, 36,000. And now we need to make the sigma x square, and that comes out to be 104,200. And here we want to make the sigma xy, and this comes out to be 106,300. Why we made this is here in our, for us it is a relation y is equal to ax plus b. So what we will do is initially we will make the summation. So sigma y is equal to, whenever we sigma y, whenever we make the sigma y, just it will be a into a times of sigma x, and whenever we add b 5 times, suppose here n is equal to 5, then it will be n into b. Okay, here sigma is nothing but sigma I is equal to 1 to n. N is nothing but 5 here, right? Now so we'll make this first. Sigma y we got it as 730, that is equal to a into sigma x, we got it as 700, plus n is 5 into b. This is our first equation, and comes our second. Now we'll take this y is equal to ax plus b, and we'll multiply x on both sides. Then it will be xy is equal to ax square plus bx. Now we'll make sigma xy, that is equal to a times of sigma x square plus b times of sigma x. Okay, then sigma xy we got from the table 106,300, that is equal to a times of sigma x square 104,200 plus b times of sigma x 700. Right, now after getting this ones by solving 1 and 2, we'll be getting the values of a and b. A is equal to 0.66 and b is equal to 53.5. okay, by solving the both equation. Now we got the relation between the demand and sales, nothing but with relation among the y and x, that is y is equal to ax plus b. nothing but y is equal to 0.66x plus 53.5. So from this, if we know the demand of the next year, then we can know what will be the general range of the sales for this pattern. Or if we know the number of sales we can make, a number of components we can make, then we can estimate the demand. We can make an estimate the target demand, and we can proceed for the manufacturing. In this way, these type of questions should be done in this way. First of all, we need to take the table and we need to calculate all the data, sigma x, sigma y, sigma x square and sigma xy. If you take x is equal to a y plus b, then here you need to take sigma y square and again sigma xy here. So it depends on this. And comes our third question, it is on PERT, P-E-R-T. Okay, and in a PERT network, the expected time. So it is said that given the expected time, so we'll write down the data. Expected time was given as 27 days. And the variance of the activity. Okay, we'll see what is the variance of this activity. Then the ratio of pessimistic time to the optimistic time is. So we need to calculate the ratio of pessimistic time to the optimistic time. If the most likely time for finishing the activity is 26 days. So the most likely time TM was also given. It is 26 days. So first we'll see what is exactly pessimistic time, what is optimistic time, what is the most likely time, and what is the expected time. So first comes our optimistic time. I'll just write it as TO instead of writing the full form. Optimistic time is the shortest time that is estimated to finish our required project. Okay, and if you are making it in a shortest time, nothing but we are speeding up the process. If you are speeding up the process, we need extra resources. In the same time, we need extra resources to make the project. Suppose you are having, you are constructing a house. Okay, you are having a labor force of 10 members. So if 10 people doing a daily work, it may take around 5 months or 6 months to finish your house daily, right? But if you want to finish as soon as fast, if you want to make everything fast, suppose if concrete generally it will cure in say suppose 1 week. But if you want to make still faster, you need to get some cooling technologies. Generally these will be used in high-end projects. You need to get some cooling technology to make the concrete cure fastly, right? So in that way you need to spend more resources to reduce the span of your project. So this is called as an optimistic time, and generally it is the shortest time. Okay, this is the shortest estimated time. These all are the estimated times. And the next is most likely time. What is the most likely time? Before discussing most likely, we'll see what is the pessimistic time. It is generally denoted by TP. The pessimistic time is the longest estimated time within which a task is likely to be completed. So it is this is the longest estimated time. Suppose you want to build your house with 10 people a day. It takes say suppose 6 months, but you will make a plan for 1 year, so that you will be making it very slow. You will include all the problems. Suppose at that time, due to nowadays we are having corona, so due to this we are not able to get the labor force to do the work. So these times everything is counted to this, and we are making a long schedule, say suppose for 1 year or 2 years to make a project. So that type of estimation is called as optimistic time, and it is the longest estimated time. Okay, this is the longest estimated time. Now next, in between comes our most likely time. Generally it is called as the normal time. Okay, normal time is, it is neither too fast nor too slow. It is generally called as a regular time, right? So this is called as a normal time, normal estimated time. And comes our expected time. This by knowing these times, we can calculate the expected times. This is nothing but the weighted average of the above 3 times. Weighted average of the above T0, TM and TP. So we'll be giving a weightage to each time. Okay, here the most weightage, we want the project to be completed mostly within the normal time, not too fast, because we don't want to spend the more resources, and we don't want to make it too long. Even that we don't know circumstances. If it is too long, project cost may increase. So we don't want to make too long, or we don't want even to make too short. So we'll select the most normal time, estimated time. But we will be giving higher weightage to the most estimated time, and generally the weightage is 4 times of the TM. And generally for the pessimistic and optimistic, we will only give one part. For the optimist, out of 6 parts, 4 parts we will be giving for the most likely time. We want to finish it in normal time. 1 part will be given for optimistic to be on the safe side, and 1 part will be given to the pessimistic to be on a safe side upon 6. This is our expected time. Okay, and in our question, this expected time was given as 27 days, and the most likely time was given. So T0 plus Tp, I am keeping it aside, plus 4 into the most likely time in the question was given as 26 upon 6. From this we calculate, we will be getting T0 plus Tp, optimistic plus pessimistic. That comes out to be 58. Let this be some equation number 1. And also here variance. Generally in statistical approach, we will be having a term called variance, and generally variance is defined as the spread of our data. Suppose we have started a project. Our project may finish in say about 21 days, or else our project may finish in 22 days. But here the mean normal time is almost like close to the TM. TM is given in the question 26 days. So variance is nothing but how far our time, actual time lies from the average is said as the variance. It is nothing but the spread of our data from the mean value is called as the variance. And generally here in this case the variance is, suppose TM is here, it is 26 days, right, given in the question, and we said T pessimistic is the longest time. I am taking it somewhere like some 35 days or maybe more than that. And T optimistic, we want to make it very short, so I will be taking it as 15 days. Okay, depending upon the situations, our project completion time may lie between in this range or else somewhere in this range. So there are probability it may lie in all these places, it may lie at any one of the places. So our data, whatever we are having, the final output may lie at somewhere here and here. So we'll calculate how far our data can lie from the mean value, and that is given by variance. And generally variance is denoted by sigma square. Sigma is nothing but the standard deviation, that when we draw a curve or normal distribution, we'll be getting a standard deviation there. Okay, we'll be selecting a mean and also 2 possible, one on both sides. So we'll be dividing it into, if we are taking a 6 sigma approach, we'll be dividing it into 2 parts in the 3 sigma and 3 sigma. From there we'll be getting the standard deviation. That is not of no use for this for us here in question. In the question, variance was given in the question, it is 16, and here the variance formula in this case is generally given by T pessimistic minus T optimistic by 6 whole square, and that was given in the question as 16. From that we can write T pessimistic minus T optimistic as, if this 6 is sent that side, it is 6 into 36 because 6 is square and under root of. Okay, and this is our other equation. We know A plus B, we know A minus B, so we can easily calculate A and B. From that we are getting our pessimistic time, that is the longest time, as 41 days, and our optimistic time we are getting it as 17 days. So close to the example we are considered here. Okay, and now we need the ratio of these pessimistic time to optimistic time. So the ratio of pessimistic time to the optimistic time is 41 upon 17, and that comes out to be 2.14, and this is our answer. And here comes our next question. This is a question on line balancing. This is a very basic question. Just to revise the basic definitions, I have taken this question. So here there are workstations A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So there are 7 workstations here, and in each workstation, once the product enters, how much time it takes the tasks in the workstation were given. So in the workstation A, it will take 25 minutes, whereas in workstation B, it takes 27 minutes. Workstation C, it will take 23 minutes, and D 14 minutes. In the same way for E, F, G were also given. So here we need to calculate, this is a line. So your product enters into A, workstation A, and it will finally leave in the workstation G. So in between we'll have all these workstations, right? So we need to calculate the line efficiency. So for this type of arrangement, so we are arranging A here, we are making for this type of line assembly is nothing but the arrangement of all the workstations in a order, so that our product passes through all of them, our whatever raw product passes through, and finally we'll be getting the product. Here we'll be sending the raw material and we'll be getting our product here. Okay, so we need to calculate the line efficiency. Generally this line efficiency is generally denoted by LE. Okay, nothing but in percentage. It is given as the total station time. So the total station means this is each part is called as a station. So at each station, how many at all the stations, how much time it will take? It is the total station time. Total station time upon cycle time. We'll discuss what is cycle time into number of stations in the line. Number of stations in the line. So first we need to know the total station time. We'll calculate the total station time here. The total station time is 25 plus 27 plus 23 plus 14 plus 22 plus 27 plus 12, and if we sum it, we are getting it as 150 minutes. So once our raw material enters and finally our product leaves out, it will take 150 minutes. Okay, 150 minutes. And what is the cycle time? Suppose here our raw material was entered, say suppose at 8 a.m. Okay, and after 25 minutes after entering into A, its work was finished. Okay, then it need to enter into the B, right? In the B it will be taking 27 minutes. So here it will enter into the B at 8:25, just after finishing here, and at 8:26. At 8:25 it will enter. 8:25 it will enter, and then after 27 minutes it will function all the tasks wherever whatever to be done, and in the B station, and it will be sent in the C station. So once our raw material was entered at 8 a.m. after finishing at A, now the A is being idle. So instead of not keeping it idle, we will send one more item inside. We will send one more raw material inside into the station A. But the main thing is, here at 8 a.m. our product will enter, at 8:25 it will be here, and at 8:25 we are giving in one more raw material here. Then at 8:50 it will be entering into B, but in B it is taking 27 minutes of time. So our product can't enter, it should stay idle in the line itself. Okay, so instead of doing that, we will keep a cycle time. The cycle time is the maximum of all these times is called as cycle time. Suppose here it is taking 27 minutes. So if we are keeping a product at 8 a.m., then the next product, if it is placed at 27 minutes from the 8 a.m., nothing but at 8:27, then exactly after finishing at B, our next product will be entering into here. There will be no idle time. In that way, the cycle time is called as the maximum of all these times, and that is 27 minutes is the maximum. I hope you would understand. Because if after finishing the 25 minutes the first product goes into B, we can't keep a raw material here directly, because even if we place it will function, the whatever task to be done in A will be done, and it will be trying to send it to B. But what exactly happened here, it takes 27 minutes of time. Okay, still it needs 2 more minutes to finish this task on the first product, but now we are sending the second, so it is being in the queue. It shouldn't happen. So it is being idle time. So what we'll do is we'll decide a cycle time for all this overall, and that dead cycle time will be sending the next raw material, and the similar pattern it will follow for the final product also. Final product, the first product will be coming at suppose it is given that 150 minutes. So from 8 a.m. 150 minutes, it is almost 2.5 hours. So for 8 a.m. our raw material will be entering. At 10:30 a.m. we'll be getting our first final finished product. Okay, after that, for 27 minutes of cycle time, then at exactly 10:57 we'll be getting the second product, and again from 27 minutes from then we'll be getting the third product. So that is called as the cycle time. In the same way, at 8 a.m. we'll be giving one raw material, again at 8:27 minutes we are giving another raw material, again after 27 minutes we are giving other raw material. So the cycle time is the maximum for all these times. 27 into the number of workstations we are having in the line. Here we are having 7 workstations, and percentage is generally we multiplied by 100, and that comes out to be 79.36%. And this is our answer. And the final question number 5. This is a question of mathematics. There is not much concept in this question. It is a question of mathematics. Mostly these types of questions are generally being asked in BARC and also possibility in ISRO also, because this question is just a question of calculation. It can be done under 1 minute, 1.5 minute, right? So just we'll read the question, we'll understand the question. The machine is used for turning operation and it takes 30 minutes to machine a component. So this statement, you keep it aside, we'll be using it at last now. Efficiency of the machine was given. So efficiency of machine was 80%. What does the efficiency of machine mean? Suppose your machine is working. Suppose machine is working. If you are giving a product, it should machine the product in 30 minutes, but it is having an efficiency of 80%. That means it need 20% extra time, still extra time to finish the product. Okay, it is efficiency of machine means. Efficiency of machine is, suppose you want 10 products, 100 products to be the output you need to get in a given time, but you are only getting 80 products output for that given time. That is because the efficiency of the machine's efficiency is not 100%. So it needs 20% extra time than whatever required. That is why we are getting 20 products less than whatever required. And what is the scrap? Scrap is given in the question 25%. That is, this material, whatever raw material we are sending, that might have some defects inside, material defects, or else during the turning operation, maybe the tool is placed wrong and there are some chatter marks, or there are some defects in the final output. So that all defects, everything will combine to be called as scrap. It is not used for our final product. So that is 25%. So if scrap is 25%, then our useful component coming out of machine is 75% only. Okay, the desired output is 1200 pieces per week. So in a week our desired output should be 1200 pieces. So in a week 1200 pieces should be the output in a 1 week. And it is said we are spending 40 hours a week and we are having 50 weeks a year. If 1200 pieces is per week, then per year we should calculate, that is per year we are having 50 weeks of working time. Then what will be the number of products per year? And the number of products per year comes out to be 1200 into 50, that is 60,000 components per year. So you make it an underline here, you don't remember this. And also it is said that, so and coming to the time, in 1 week we are spending 40 hours of time. Then for 50 weeks, nothing but 1 year, how many hours will spend? That comes out to be 2000 hours per year. 2000 hours per year we will be spending on manufacturing the product. Keep this also in a box. So our main aim is, in 1 year we need to produce 60,000 components by working for 2000 hours. I'm sorry, it is not years, 2000 hours. Okay, in 1 year we have to produce 60,000 components and we should be working for 2000 hours. This you keep in mind. Okay, this is our target. 60,000 components we have to produce and we need to work for 2000 hours. And next, it takes 30 minutes to machine a component. Suppose a component is taking 30 minutes. It is the theoretical time given. Generally, if the machine is operating at its full efficiency and there is no scrap, it should take 30 minutes to machine a component. So if it is taking 30 minutes for one component, then in 1 hour how many components it will be making? It will be making 2 components. This is the theoretical number of components. It will be made in 1 hour. Then what is the actual number of components in 1 hour? Because we are making it per hour, na? So the actual number of components per hour, and that comes out to be the 2 components, whatever theoretical we are making, into the machine efficiency, into the scrap, into the useful outcome of a product, outcome of component, that is nothing but 75%, removing the scrap. So that comes out to be 2 into the machine efficiency was 0.8. So theoretically it can make 2, but due to its efficiency, it is having some losses. Its efficiency was given, so 2 into 0.8, nothing but 1.6 is the per hour. And also in that 1.6 there is a scrap 25% going out, so only 75% will be used by us. Okay, and now this comes out to be 1.2 components per hour. So we can make only 1.2 components per hour actually. Okay, if we are making, so this is 1.2 components per hour, then for 2000 hours, so we are functioning for 2000 hours, right? Into, we are making 1.2 components per hour per machine. This is 1 hour, 1.2 components per hour per machine. Here we need to calculate the number of machines to finally get the desired outcome, that is a 60,000 units. So 2000 hours will be working on one component, 2000 hours will be working on one machine, and we'll be making 1.2 components on one machine into the number of machines. I hope you are getting. 2000 hours we have the working time, and 1.2 components a machine can make in an hour, and here comes our number of machines, okay, n, and that final it will be equal to the 60,000. okay, then here comes our value of n, the number of machines is 25 machines. So if we take 25 such identical machines and if we work for 2000 hours in an year, then we will be getting 60,000 outcomes, 60,000 final products in that given year. Okay, this is the question. This is a basic question of mathematics. There is nothing much. You just practice once this question, modify question by yourself, make the numbers change here, and then calculate, do some other thing. So instead of taking 30 minutes, you can take 10 minutes. Instead of taking 30 minutes, you can take 2 hours. And here also you can compare. You can take some automatic lathe and also one turret lathe, and one bench lathe. Okay, you can take 2 types of lathe, one standard lathe, nothing but conventional lathe, and another an automatic lathe, computerized automatic lathe. Then the time will be varying. Here automatic lathe may take 5 minutes, and our general conventional it may take 30 minutes. Okay, then how many number of components it will produce and how many number of components it will produce, you can take the ratio. So in this way you can frame all the questions here. Industrial engineering, once you know the concept, it is all about mathematics. But generally it is very practical to imagine. Industrial engineering will be very practical to imagine. It is all related to mostly mechanical production. Okay, so you can mostly practically relate this. So thanks for watching. This is all for today. Jai Hind.